Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the April 30th meeting of the Columbia Rotary Club. Glad to be here with you today. We're going to go ahead and get started with our national anthem with Rusty DePass and Jim Smithwick. Thank you, and please remain standing. We'll ask Danny Garnett to come up and lead us in our invocation.
Please join me as we pray. Thank you, God, for this Rotary community. And thank you also for the needs we learn about in our community, our state, and our world that inspires us to cultivate a personal mission, to use our gifts, our talents, our financial resources, to touch the lives of people in South Carolina and around the world. We are reminded each week of the importance of service above self, and we are grateful for this Rotary community that gives us pathways to channel our personal missions that you have created in all of our lives. In your name we pray. Amen.
All right, thank you, Danny. If everybody will hold up cart buckets on your tables. Let's put some money in those cart buckets. And I'm going to ask Carl Byers to come up here. As you know, the good Lord did not think it was okay for us. Actually, I need to bring Lee up here before you, Carl. I don't want to get off. Yeah. But Lee's talking, so. I know. Lee, are you going to come up here? Come on up. We're going to do visiting Rotarian guests, and then we're going to talk about some golf because, you know, last Monday was just miserable. So, Lee, come on up and let's introduce visiting Rotarians and guests.
We are so happy to have all of you today. We have no visiting Rotarians from other clubs, but we're going to ask each of you to have guests to please announce them. Thank you so much.
I have a guest, and if you'll stand, Chuck. I have Chuck Wade with me today. Chuck is the owner of Fully Promoted in Irmo. They're a promotional marketing company, and if you stand still long enough, he will put a logo on you. So welcome, Chuck Wade.
Hello, I'm Rhonda Hunsinger, and I bring with me today Robin Halliburton. She has been the development director for the South Carolina Philharmonic for 11 years, which that might be a record in the world for surviving that position. Fundraising is hard work, and she's fantastic, so thank you.
I'm Wayne Liggett, and today Dave Brenneker is with me. He's with Crestcon Bank, and he's hopefully we'll get him to transfer his membership from Hilton Head Rotary Club to the Columbia Rotary Club.
All right, welcome everybody. We're glad to have you here. And let's talk about some golf really quick. Monday was just a disaster weather-wise, and none of us wanted to be out there playing, and Carl and I went out there to try to head off anybody who would come out there. So thanks for everybody sort of being flexible and willing to shift the date. So if you want to come up and talk about what we're going to do this Friday, and then we'll talk about something else we're going to do this Friday. So, Big Friday.
Thank you, Carrie. This weather is awesome, and just so you know, we borrowed one of Irmo Chamber of Commerce's weather days for Friday. It's going to be fantastic. Before I get started, I just want to make one quick kind of home public safety announcement. This comes from Mr. Cannon and myself and all those who've had an injury at home because this beautiful spring weather gets us out there and we're blowing and we're cutting and we're trimming. Safety glasses. Safety glasses at home. I want everybody to make sure you have them, you wear them. And if you're hearing me, I promise. I'll take it. Okay. This is a Rotary Fun Alert. Friday, the makeup date for golf. We have a good many teams that are signed up, but I'm a little uncomfortable to say that I've got confirmation of everybody. So on your table is our golf teams. So what I'd like is for y'all to look this over. My number, my email is on top, or come to the back at the end of the meeting and let me know if you have any changes so we can kind of get this organized. First time was hard enough. I'm not sure who's playing and who's not in the moment, so it's helpful because when you arrive at the club, they'll take the clubs out of your car and they'll put them on your card. So you need to know what card. So just a little bit more about Friday. You'll arrive, you'll register, 9 o'clock registration. We'd like everybody in their carts by 10:15. We're going to have a buffet lunch, but it's a buffet make-your-own box lunch. So come in time to make your lunch, get settled, practice putting a little bit. We did cancel the putting contest, so like everybody in their cart, 10:15, 10:30 shotgun start. We're out, we're having fun. Probably about 3:30 or 4, we're going to come back, have a little award ceremony, and a little snack. I'm trying to get you on the road for a rush hour. So along with the teams, Andy, Shane, maybe you could talk about your volunteers a minute.
Well, first of all, thank everyone who has volunteered to participate in the tournament, to help us. We're obviously looking for any more folks who want to help, because obviously with the new date, not everybody could make it who volunteered 1 day a week ago. For those of you who have volunteered, like I did last time, I'll send out a spreadsheet probably in a couple of days with your assignments. If you haven't already, if you have any special times that you can come or you can't come, please make sure I know about that. So obviously I'm going to assign you to something where you can't make it. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you all on Friday and for those golfing and training.
Thank you, Andy. So, of course, Friday night is also the Fireflies night for Rotary, so it could be an all-Rotary Friday. So thanks again for your patience and helping us put this tournament back together here. Thank you.
So I promised Blake that I would talk about his night since I took his day away from him. But it is Rotary Night at the Fireflies on Friday, May the 4th, and the game starts at 7:05 p.m. and there's group seats available. I have the flyer here if you would like to attend. You know, just leave. We'll be out of the golf tournament in time. You just head right on down to Bull Street and you'll be fine. But it should be a really good night and a really good night of Rotary Fellowship. All right, so we'll move on to Molly. Are you ready? Yeah, we're going to go on with health and happiness. I've got Miss Molly Clarkson to come on up here.
All right, let's see if that works. Hello everyone, I'm Molly Clarkson with Health and Happiness. I was told to keep this short and sweet. I'm an attorney, so I'll leave this to your imagination how hard that's going to be for me, but I'll do my best. We'll start with some sad news. A long time longtime member of this club, Cliff Bodiford. I don't know if you've seen the news, but he recently passed away. We don't know too many details. It sounds like he might have had some sort of cancer, I think short duration. I'm taking this from his obituary. It says he died Saturday, born here in Columbia. He was a graduate of Columbia High School, served in the National Guard, was an accountant, worked with Clarkson, Hardin and Gant, Arthur Young, Ernst & Young, Arthur Anderson, his own firm. Longtime member here of the Rotary Club. It says his family will receive friends from 10 until noon this Wednesday at Shaw's Funeral Home, and there'll be a private family burial after. So I've got the obituary here, and it's also available online if anyone wants any further information. I have an update on JT Gandolfo. It appears that his brother is in fact a match. There'll be some more testing to be done, but they can proceed with a bone marrow transplant. So I've been told he answers to text, so he can reach out to him that way, and we should keep him on prayer list. Let's see, Robin Gorman asked me to pass along this information. If anyone would like to know where they are relative to their Paul Harris status or what their next level would be, please contact her. Her email is rgorman@sc.rr.com. And finally, interesting little bit of news, Burt Bacharach is going to be coming to Columbia and doing a small, intimate concert. It appears his youngest daughter rides hunt seat for the USC's equestrian team. And in support of that, he is agreed to do a very small performance at the Governor's Mansion next Wednesday, May 9th. Tickets are extremely limited, but there are still a few, as well as some sponsorships available. So if you're interested in either one of those things, please see Margaret Clarkson for details. And I think that's it.
All right, so 38 of you did not make a contribution to our foundation this year. So Robin Gorman will be contacting you shortly. It's really important that every Rotarian in this club does contribute something to our foundation. It's important on a district level for us, and so think about that when you're doing your charitable giving every year. Think about donating to the foundation. It's a great place to put your money, and she'll be calling you soon about that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go with our speaker, Steve Ryan. Do you want to come up here and introduce him? Oh, I'm sorry. Look, sorry. Wait a second. I forgot. Stephen has some important bylaw stuff to take care of, which, yeah, I'm just so excited. I'll go ahead and give it to you.
If we didn't do it now, we'd have to do it later. You're going to forget me. It's time and effort we put into this. Thank you, President Carey. Good afternoon, everybody. A couple weeks ago, or a few weeks ago, I was up here to talk about the bylaws revisions, and just want to recap that process for you. On March 23rd, our board approved the bylaws provisions that were mailed to all of you or left on the tables at that meeting, and then were also posted on our website. And at April 9th, I discussed those bylaws with you, and as well as some of the revisions and the details around the revisions. Just a quick summary of the proposed changes. I can't see. The first major change to the bylaws was the election of a club secretary. That person would become an officer of this club, and every year we elect a new board, and the 7 newly elected board members pick a president-elect. That process would change in that the newly elected board would then pick a secretary, and then that secretary would matriculate up the line to become president-elect and then president, and that would create some leadership continuity that we need. And the second major change is the establishment of a programs committee. The president-elect has a lot of work to do setting up programs. Creating an established programs committee would help them in accomplishing that task. The third change in the bylaws was just rudimentary changes, updates to our club practices. For example, we meet at 12:30 now, not 1 o'clock, which the current bylaws state. The fourth change was the establishment of a 50% attendance standard at meetings. Currently, the bylaws say 80% is the standard, but we are adjusting our standard to 50%, which is what Rotary International has done, so we are staying in compliance with Rotary International. And lastly, the majority of the red ink on the red line copy was the simplified committee structure. And those assignments that you see in there were based on our current practices. Well, one mistake I made in simplifying the committee structure, I probably oversimplified it in a way because I think I failed to account for the 5 avenues of Rotary service, which are established from Rotary International. So this is one edit that you did not see in what was mailed to your homes. And basically just says, the president shall, subject to the approval of the board, appoint committees to help him or her accomplish the business of the club. These committees should be the foundation of club activity and reflect Rotary's 5 avenues of service as defined by Rotary International. And then those 5 avenues are club service, vocational service, community service, international service, and youth service. So I didn't want us to go rogue on Rotary, being that we are the Columbia Rotary Club and we've been around for over 100 years. We may need to make sure we keep those in there, so I apologize for that oversight. These committees, which are spelled out in the bylaws, these are the club service committees, these remain the same, so nothing has changed with those. There were 2 other questions I had that I received over the last month. One was about the scholarship committee and whether we needed to add that. The scholarship committee is a community service committee. That's really the function of the 5 avenues of Rotary service that it accomplishes. And we don't need to name every single committee that we have in here. The board can create new committees as necessary. So the only committees that are really spelled out are these club service committees, which are important to the vitality of our club to make sure that we're operating responsibly and developing our members as we should. And then the only other change that I received, or question that I received, was about the process for electing the club secretary. So in the first year that we elect the club secretary, we're going to have to elect both a president-elect and a club secretary. So the board that we elect this December will then choose a secretary and a president-elect. And then the secretary will matriculate, become the president-elect, the president-elect will matriculate, become the president after myself and after Lisa Campbell are done serving. So those were really the only questions I received to all of these. And I'm certainly willing to accept a motion to approve if the club desires.
So moved.
We have a motion to approve. We have a second. We have a second. Okay. Discussion. Any discussion? Questions? Elliot?
Well, the secretary, how long will the term be for a secretary on the board?
To go all the way through, they would be on the board for 3 years. They'd be secretary, president-elect, and president. And they could serve prior to that as well. So it could be longer than 3 years.
Point of clarification, serving the secretary for 1 year,
That is correct.
Secretary is elected.
That's correct, yes. Any other discussion, questions? Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We'll call the question. And we can do this via a voice vote with a quorum of our members here today, which we do have, which is about 80 members as defined by our bylaws as a third of our membership. So all in favor of supporting this motion, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
All right, thanks everybody. This is Stephen. Sorry, I didn't mean to push you off that. All right, now we will go ahead with our speaker. Steve Bryant will come up and introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon. Our speaker today is Dan Weekley. Dan is the Vice President of Southern Operations for Dominion Energy. Dan is responsible for working with the leadership development team at Energy to identify further business growth opportunities in the southern region of the United States. He also oversees the company's government affairs functions. Dan joined Consolidated Natural Gas in 1989 focusing on coal-related matters, and later on natural gas transmission, storage, and production. He became part of the Dominion in 2000 upon merger with CNG. In 2001, he was named Director of Northeast Government Affairs, and he became Managing Director, Northeast Government Affairs in 2007. He previously was responsible for state and local affairs issues in New York and West Virginia for Dominion Transmission and Hope Gas Incorporated, both subsidiaries of Dominion. Dan was named Vice President, Government Affairs in January 2011 and became Vice President, Corporate Affairs in January 2014. He assumed his current post in January 2017. He serves on numerous boards in New York, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, including the New England Energy Alliance in Massachusetts. He also is past chairman and treasurer of Mitchell College in New London, Connecticut. He is past chairman of the United Way of Southeastern Connecticut fundraising campaign, which collected more than $9 million under his leadership. Dan is a member of the Board of Trustees of the West Virginia chapter of the Nature Conservancy and of the boards of directors of the Virginia Foundation for Community College Education, the Greater Richmond Partnership Incorporated, and the Maymont Foundation. He was the 2015 and 2016 chairman of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society fundraising effort. Dan earned his bachelor's degree in business and finance from Marshall University and his master's degree in business administration from the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Please join me in welcoming Dan to the podium.
Wow, music and all. Well, thank you for that kind of introduction, and thanks so much for the opportunity to be here today. If it's okay, I'm going to stay away from the microphone and cycle around if that's all right with you. And I do have a PowerPoint, and I can guarantee you one thing. There is nobody in the room who hates PowerPoints more than me, okay? So I always kind of view them as a crutch. So this should be more of a conversation than it should be anything else. So I ask that any questions, let's take them at the time as we kind of go through this, because it's a really difficult topic here. And a lot of questions. We've been doing the Rotary meetings, whether it's economic development. We've had roughly 250 of these kind of meetings across the state in the last 3 or 4 months. And those of you who have heard this before, I apologize. So always try to change it up a little bit. So since this is the front issue, I think South Carolina is dealing with it at the moment. Can I ask, how many people in the room had heard of Dominion Energy prior to this whole thing? Okay, it's about half. That's pretty typical. Okay, so for those of you background, we're a company headquartered in Richmond, Virginia, as you heard. We have facilities in about 18 states, but we're going to talk about South Carolina in just a second. So for those who have not heard of Dominion prior to this, you might be surprised to know that we've invested about $750 million in South Carolina just in the last 3 years. So for this, and Mr. President, you have the presentation. Please send it out to the members. It's all public information here. All this says here, for everybody who can't read it in the back row, do not listen to me for stock advice. Okay, so if you're buying Dominion stock, thank you. If you're buying Scana stock or selling Scana stock, thank you. But don't listen to me on the advice piece. Okay, so one of the things that Dominion, about 16,000 employees, and by the way, as you heard, I'm the finance guy, I'm not the PR guy. Okay, so I'm going to cycle through a bunch of these slides really quick and get to the real deal. But one thing that I can tell you is when you look at Dominion, there are 16,000 roughly employees. Almost all 16,000 will know our core values. And what you don't see in this core values is anything regarding earnings or dollars per share or those type of things. Our chairman, Tom Farrell, strongly believes if you deal with the 4 major issues, everything else will take care of itself. So people are always interested when they listen to our earnings calls or they listen to our annual meetings. The first thing he talks about is safety, because that is a core value for us. We are talking about an industrial company that deals with that, whether we're talking about electricity or we're talking about natural gas. So safety is our #1 priority. Yes, you're going to, as I indicated, I'm going to try to do my best to get to the questions as quickly as possible. So I'll kind of skip through most of this stuff. Okay, so here's a breakdown of our operations. You can see those 18 states. The way to look at this is everything that you see is a blue dot is a power station of some sort. Whether it's solar in California, whether it is nuclear in Connecticut, whether it's nuclear in Virginia, everything on there is a power station of some type of generation type. If you do the math, it's about 26,000 megawatts. Now the way to think about a megawatt is a megawatt will serve about 250 residential homes in a day. Put that in perspective, SCANA has about 5,000 megawatts. So as you can see, we're about 5 times larger when it comes to that. The light area, that's our electric service territory. That's where we serve in Virginia. We have about 2.5 million customers in the state of Virginia. And then the yellow area is where we are the natural gas company. So we are the local distribution company. So we're the equivalent of SCAPE there, okay? And then out west, a company called Questar is ours. We purchased about 3 years ago. We have about 1 million customers there. So the first question I'm going to ask is, you can see our service territory in Virginia. So we have all the Northern Virginia areas of government. So federal government, we have all the Hampton Roads area, where it's all the industrial developments down there, whether they're building the new aircraft carriers or submarines or all that industrial development down Hampton Roads. Anybody want to guess who the biggest customer of Dominion is? Government. Government. Good guess. That's what we get most of the time. No. I'll give you a hint. Think Christmas. Not Santa Claus. But my kids who are in college think there's some connection. Amazon. Amazon is by far our biggest customer. And it's not the distribution centers or the warehouses, it is the data centers. These data centers that are just running all the time. We have just seen unbelievable growth in Virginia about the data center growth. Whether you're Microsoft, whether you're Amazon, Visa, that is just a huge area of growth. All right, so here's a breakdown of our facilities in South Carolina. A lot of people are surprised to find that we have our gas pipeline network here that is in 32 of the 46 counties across the state. You can see the primary area. We just finished this leg up here in the Lawrence-Spartanburg area. We just built 55 miles of pipeline to serve SCANA, by the way, but it's to push gas into the southern part of the state, down in that Charleston, that Berkeley County area that's just having, huge, huge growth down there. So the project was entirely within South Carolina, but to push gas farther down into the other end of South Carolina, okay? 2 compressor stations were added in a part of this. These 2 areas right here, these are 2 solar facilities down in Jasper. People are always surprised to find we have the largest solar facility in the state. More than 1,000 acres of solar panels down there on those 2 sites, okay? 270,000 panels are down there. 270,000 panels, okay? We installed 10,400 panels in one 24-hour period, okay? Just amazing how quickly those go together, but how intensive they are to do that. Okay, and then, a little bit more of the PR, and a lot of stuff we're always surprised to find out. We're the sixth largest utility company when it comes to solar across the country. You can see all the rest of those things that we've been dealing with for the last few years. This is one we never skip over. We are very proud of this program. It's called Troops to Energy. This is a program where almost all utilities have adopted in the last handful of years. Folks that come out of the military who come to work for utilities. And I will tell you, folks come out of the military are perfect employees for us, because what they've done is they're focused on safety, they're focused on ethics. We started this about 15 years ago, and most of the utilities across the country have started it, but we're very proud it originated with us. Some of the other stuff that I'll just, again, try to get to the deal as much as possible. Okay? You're seeing a lot of changes in generation. This is one of the questions I get most of the time. What is Dominion going to be focused on for the next evolution of electric generation in the state? And our answer to that is easy. Society will tell us that. You all will tell us what you want. What we have got to do is tell you the positives and negatives of all that. But at the end of the day, the customers will dictate what that is. Okay? Alrighty, we're also proud, we get recognition all the time as one of the largest and the best economic development companies regarding utilities in the country. And we have a very simple philosophy when it comes to that. Don't pick a region. It's more important that that company comes to the state versus one county over another. And I understand we always kind of get into that. You know, one area says they need it, one area says they want it more, all those other kind of things. We try our best to stay out of those squabbles. It's more important that the company comes to the state rather than one county or one jurisdiction over another. Okay, so let's get to the SCANA issue. I will tell you this. This will probably go down as one of the largest utility failures in modern history. What happened in Fairfield up in Jenkinsville. When you think about that, granted, let's not forget, their number one vendor failed every person in this room. Westinghouse / Toshiba. Okay? It failed everybody here. I don't think there's any question people could say that there could have been different oversight issues between SCANA, Santee Cooper, all those kind of things. But at the end of the day, that is what happened. The vendor failed the state. I will also say, this is probably the most complicated corporate deal I've ever seen, okay? Because typically in a corporate deal, you come along and you work exclusively with the shareholders, okay? You go in and you decide, one company decides to merge with another, and you talk about how much the share premium is going to be, okay? Then you go through the vote. But I break it down into 4 categories. The first category is every person in this room, the customers. And look, we're all over the place, been dealing with this for many months. The customers are mad. Everybody gets that, okay? And I'm going to tell you a couple things as we go through this. It's probably going to be a little bit mad. There are 2 points in this, and people say, I wasn't aware of that, okay? So that's just some of the feedback I get from the other meetings. The second point is, the second entity I break it down is, when you think about it, is there's more than 5,300 SCANA employees. People are surprised there's that many. The majority are here in South Carolina. They have about 500 in North Carolina, where they are the natural gas company only. Their service territory is Raleigh, Charlotte, that Asheville area. Big growth, but they have about 500 there. They have about 100 employees down outside of Atlanta. Their marketing group is headquartered there. So again, 5,300 employees. So that's group 2 of 4. Group 3 is the regulators and legislators. They are trying to figure out a way how to navigate through this. They are looking for that silver bullet out there. And if that silver bullet is there, I don't know how to get to it, okay? Because I truly don't know how. And look, they're working hard up there. They're doing everything they can to try to figure out a way to navigate through this. But almost just as important, to show that this never happens again. Anything of this scale ever could happen across the state again. So those are the things that they're trying to do. And they've been meeting a lot. You know, I know the media coverage says there hasn't been anything done on this in a while or anything else. They're meeting a lot. There is a lot of activity associated with this. Okay? The last group is the shareholders of SCANA. People are always surprised to find under the Articles of Incorporation with SCANA, you've got to get a 2/3 majority of their shareholders to do with anything. Not a simple majority, not 50% plus 1, a 2/3 majority. So when you think about that, that puts a really high hurdle out there. All right? The majority, this is probably not surprising to you, the majority of shareholders don't live in South Carolina. And it's really hard to track. We've been asking SCANA this, but because most people have it through their brokerage houses, etc., probably 20% or less don't live in South Carolina. Okay? So when you sit there and think about this, and I'm not here to whine, but the reality is we're getting arrows from both sides. We're getting arrows from the customers who say, we want more in rates to go down and we want more in refunds. We've got the shareholders on the other side saying, wait a minute, we are the ones that technically own the company, so we want more in shareholder value and then less in customer value. Why are you giving almost $2 billion in cash to the customers? We want that in share value. So that's why I say it is really, it's a fascinating topic when you think about it. When you think, there are going to be a lot of business cases associated with this, saying, oh my gosh. And then of course you get to the point of Dominion stepped into a hornet's nest here. And I got to tell you, none of that is a surprise to us, because we knew how upset the customers would be. Okay? So yes, everybody wants to talk about, I'm going to kick through these and go into some quick detail. Yes, we're going to talk the refund, which everybody always wants to talk about. You will be getting a refund, okay? You will be getting lower rates. This is the piece that I'm going to go in detail in a second. People are surprised to find there's actually a big piece of the nuclear bill that's not in your rates today. Now, I'm not in any way saying the state would approve it, but under the law, SCAN has got the right to go in and apply for it, okay? Which would make rates even higher, okay? That money has already been spent. People, as it stands right now, the rates would be frozen for 3 years. There's no freeze now. SCAN could come back in any time and ask for a rate increase. And please, if you're taking notes, I'm not in any way saying that they are. I'm just saying that they could. Okay? The litigation piece of all this. This is one where we had to swallow hard. All these suits that are out there, Dominion is taking on the litigation risk after a certain point. Okay? So likely these are going to drag on for a long time. Okay? And then I already talked about the stronger energy partner. We're very proud of our economic development. And the reason I put this on that slide is we hear all the time from the local economic development folks that entities are not looking at South Carolina behind Skaggs territory. That's about a third of the state because of this unrest. There is no stability and predictability with that. And so that has become a huge economic development challenge in those areas. Okay, let me ask again. How many people have heard about the refunds? Okay, I'd be surprised if it's not almost 100%, because that's what everybody wants to talk about. The way to think about the refunds is if your electric bill is about $150 a month over the course of the year, you are going to get a $1,000 refund. Okay? If your bill is $300 a month, you are going to get $2,000 from us. It is based on your usage. But that door swings both ways. If your bill is only $75 a month, you are going to be getting about $500 refund from us. Okay? We have one individual customer that's going to get roughly $20,000 refund. Okay? I have no idea what they're growing in the basement. I don't know any pieces of that kind of stuff. Okay? Don't know the details. But yes, we have one industrial customer that's going to get $23 million. Okay? Anybody guess who it is?
It's not scanning, is it?
It's not scanning. Okay? But you know what? I don't know who said that, but that's the answer I get every time. Scan. Anybody else? It's not Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's not Alcoa. Kimberly-Clark, outside of Edgefield-Aiken area there. It's about $23 million. Okay? Here's one for you, and you're going to see a breakdown of this in just a second. The state of South Carolina is going to get about $36 million. Okay? Now, I have no idea what they're going to do with the money or anything else, but they're entitled to about $36 million. Okay? All right, so there's a breakdown of all the categories. Okay? Interestingly, about the residential, South Carolina is a little bit different. Typically, in most states, the industrial commercial classes are the biggest part of the system there, majority of the load. Here in South Carolina, it's pretty evenly divided. Residential customers are about half. Okay? So you can see industrials are about 300 million of that. The municipalities are going to get almost $23 million. And yes, I've been getting those questions a lot. And I cannot tell you how many, and I live right here in town, I can't tell you if I go out with a Dominion shirt on or a ball hat and those kind of things, people keep saying, ask me, when am I getting my check? I had a woman the other day moderately aggressive with me, saying, where is my check? Why haven't you sent it to me yet? So the refunds are an interesting piece. You don't have to do anything to get your refunds. You don't have to fill out a voucher, you don't have to fill out a debit card or anything else. We will send you the checks automatically, okay? Within 90 days of the closing of the deal, okay? Also, you'll see we have one church that's going to get almost $200,000, okay? The next piece of it is an immediate 7% rate reduction, okay? Now, the interesting piece of this is it's not on the nuclear piece. It's on the overall bill, okay? So some people have been characterizing it just on nuclear. It's not. It's on the overall bill. And you'll notice there's an asterisk beside that. The reason for the asterisk is about half of this is coming from the federal corporate tax change that happened at the end of last year that went from 35% down to 21%. Even though we are merging with SCANA, we don't know every nuance of all their deferred regulatory accounting and whatnot. We've been through it, but we don't know every detail. We are very comfortable that that's going to be at least 3.5% of the 7, okay, the corporate tax change. If it's more than that, we are pledging to give every penny of it to the customers, okay? And we've been saying this since January 3rd when we announced the deal. And by the way, everything that I'm saying here, you can read every word of it. If you want the link, Mr. President, I'll be happy to forward it to you there through the Securities Exchange Commission. The merger agreement, every single word of it is there, okay? So again, whatever the tax change is, we're going to give it to you, okay? These are, as I indicated, there are two pieces that will probably irritate you, and this is number one, okay? As it stands right now under the current law, you will be paying what happened up in Jenkinsville for the next 60 years. It will be embedded in your bill. And the reason for that is that was the planned useful life of the plant, okay? 40-year originally licensed from the NRC. You can get a license extension after that once you meet all safety requirements for an additional 20 years. So 60-year life, okay? Well, I think we've all talked about, does anybody really believe that what happened to Jenkinsville, that units 2 and 3 will be finished? I don't. I just can't see how it works. SCANA has to walk away from the project. We could happy to talk about that. So Santee Cooper could finish it. I have my doubts whether that will ever meet economic sense, okay? So our plan is we're going to shrink that down to 20 years, okay? That one little savings right there will save every customer about $8 billion, put it all together, okay? And it's no different. Those of you, we were talking real estate over here, okay? If somebody goes out and buys a new home and has a 30-year mortgage, if they shrink that down to 15 years, they are paying the exact same principal, but their financing charges are dramatically different, okay? That's exactly the same philosophy here. But to think about that is, remember, we just promised you at least a 7% rate decrease. Those things don't jive. How do you do that? Well, the reason how you do that is we're going to pay $575 million on day one, okay, to top off that. To basically speed up that amortization, to buy the rate down is what we're doing. So if you're keeping track, when you look at it, there is $1.3 billion in refunds, and then $575 million advance payment on the depreciation piece of that. So there's almost $1.9 billion in cash out of our pocket on day one, okay? The next piece of this is number 2, what I indicated might irritate you. There's an additional $1.7 billion that has been spent by SCANA at Jenkinsville that's not in your rates today, okay? So they could go along and apply to the Public Service Commission, and again, I know I'm repeating myself and I apologize. There's no indication that the PSC would approve it, but the money has been spent. It's already gone, okay? So what Dominion has said is we will eat that piece of that. Okay? We will pledge that we will never seek recovery of that again. So that was not a liability sitting out over there someplace. That money will be absorbed by, or that responsibility, more specifically.
You said ask questions.
Sure.
Why would you have a dog in the fight if you don't have a deal?
Why did you spend $1.7 billion?
We didn't spend it, SCANA spent that money. If the deal goes through, we will be eating that.
You're calling Dominion Energy shareholders SE&G shareholders.
We'll absorb it. The Dominion shareholders will absorb this. You're right. As it stands right now, SCANA shareholders have that listed out there. But because nobody's moved forward with it, when it's all said and done, Dominion will absorb it. And it's a very good question. It's just sitting out there. Nobody knows what to do with it yet because the utility has not decided whether they would pursue rate recovery of that. But that's a really good point. Okay, hope that answers it for you.
It did. Thank you.
Okay. All right, the rate freeze. Everybody knows this. We've kind of talked about this. What we have said is, and some folks have gotten a little confused on this one, is what we've said in 3 years, and we will come back and go through the exact same process that is current law under the Public Service Commission now. Okay? Still, anybody who wants to intervene in a rate case, when you agree with them or disagree, it's basically going back to the existing process. But there's no way for us to do that prior to that, with one little caveat. Every utility company in the country I know does a fuel adjustment every year. And basically what happens there is you go to the Public Service Commission and say, this is what our fuel costs are for this period of time. So that's the only caveat with that. So you don't get any return on capital, O&M, or anything else. It's just fuel. And every utility I know doesn't make a penny on fuel. And whether it's nuclear fuel, coal, oil, whatever, it's just the customers pay for that penny for penny. Okay? This is one that we got this idea from SCANA. And SCANA just closed on this. They bought a natural gas plant just outside of Columbia. It's over closer to the airport. It's actually in Calhoun County, but it's called the Columbia Energy Center. It was originally built by Sempra, and they purchased that. But the interesting piece of that is the acquisition cost of $180 million. It's not going into your rates. Okay? The only thing that the customers are paying for is the operation and maintenance of that. So that's where you make your return, is your investments. They're not making any, they're not getting any return on that, and we thought that was exactly the right thing to do. So we're aligned with that. They finished that up about 2 weeks ago. Okay? People ask me this all the time. Employees. Employees are guaranteed compensation-wise through the end of next year. Okay? Now, others have said, wait a minute, is that long enough? You know what, I think that's up for debate. But I would also say there is no guarantee for those 5,300 employees at SCANA today. None. Okay? We've been having a lot of meetings with the employees, because 5,300 employees want to know what is going to happen to their company. So we've been working really hard at going out and meeting with large groups of employees. We're going to, SCANA as it stands right now does about $3 million a year in charitable giving. We like their program. We call it something different at Dominion, but they call it Dollars for Doers. And basically what that means is the folks in the community, and the employees rather, decide where to fund in their community. It's not a top-driven down organization, and Dominion does exactly the same thing. Okay, so we like that. We're going to put another $1 million in their fund for the employees to decide where it should go out into the communities. Okay, we talked about the Stronger Energy Partner. This is the piece that, in my opinion, this needs to get resolved because this has been dragging along for quite a while now. Remember, they announced that they were not going to be pursuing the project at the end of July last year. So doing that math, here we are 8-9 months later, and it's not fully resolved about this. One thing I'll say may surprise you, if another company comes along and puts a better, more comprehensive deal on the table to buy SCANA and the state should take it, okay? Because I just know we push the numbers really hard here to make them work, okay? And the reason that we believe it works is why we're interested in South Carolina. Because we see South Carolina as on a continuing upward economic development trend. We probably won't know if this is a good investment for us for many years, okay? Probably 7 to 10 years whether it's a good investment. But I will tell you, South Carolina is on a very good trend. If that levels off or heads downward, then we're probably going to be in a different position.
What's your
Okay.
estimated repayment for all of the money you're putting into
Yep,
this deal?
it's a really good question. So I'm going to repeat it, just to make sure I get it right so everybody can hear. So I think what you're saying is, what's our rate of return?
Yeah.
It's going to be on the whole thing. People are surprised our overall rate of return. Because don't forget, we're putting out $2 billion basically, or $1.9 billion on day one, and we're absorbing another 1.7 we can't seek recovery on. We've testified before the legislature many times on this topic, about 5%. Overall 5% rate of return on this deal.
How long though?
Depends on how long you want to take it out there. And really, and I think that's the real issue for that. That, to your question, is what Wall Street is asking. And look, I can give you analysts on both sides of this. I can give you analysts that say, hey, Dominion, tough deal. Do I need to be louder?
It would help.
All right, I'll do my best to speak a little louder. So the question is, how over what period of time here? So Wall Street has come back, and you know what? Our stock has taken a beating since this whole deal came out. Okay? There's two reasons for that. Wall Street was not all that enamored with the deal. Said, are you realizing what you are stepping into here? Because it is a tough deal. Our stock was trading at $85 a share, 84 and change, the day we announced the deal. We are now down into the mid-60s. Okay? Part of it's SCANA, and part of it is because of a tax change that the federal government made. But if you tracked our stock within the few days afterwards, our stock was tracking opposite of SCANA's. When they were up, we were down. When we were up, they went down. Okay, we've been back and forth. That's because Wall Street's not all that enamored with the deal here. Okay, that's just the realization of where you are. But to your point, you know what? I think it's really going to depend over a long period of time whether we get our money back or not. You know what?
When is the deal anticipated to close?
So the question is, when's the deal going to be done? Okay, and that also comes back to the legislative piece of that, if I could expand that. So realistically, we think the deal could be done in the fall, end of the year. Okay, there are several things that have got to get done. So let's talk about the federal stuff first. Okay, federal stuff. The first thing we had to do is go out and get the Federal Trade Commission to say they basically got one that says, does any company have too much power in one state? Okay, it's called Hart-Scott-Rodino. They ruled on it. That was fine. Okay, no issues with that. We knew that would be because we don't have electric customers here. The next piece of that is Federal Energy Regulatory Commission has got to say yes. Okay? After that, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has got to say yes. And the reason the Nuclear Regulatory Commission's got to say yes is because you're transferring the operating license off of VC Summer 1 over to us. We have 4 units that are very similar to VC 1. And let me say this, SCANA is a very good operator of nuclear. Certainly we can talk about the building piece of this, but as for operating nuclear, they're a very good, safe operator. They get awards all the time for how well VC Summer 1 runs. Then going to the state, the 3 states have got approval. Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. Okay? Georgia's already said yes, and South Carolina and North Carolina are going through their process. Okay? Clearly, but South Carolina, because the majority of the facilities are here, you know, it's going to take the longest for them. Okay? So, yes, we do feel like we can have it done later.
Question for you.
Yes, sir.
What are you paying for SCANA stock?
Okay? It's a really good question, and one that people are a little surprised at. So, what we're paying is a stock-for-stock transfer. There is no cash back to SCANA shareholders, which basically helps you on a taxable transaction, on the day of closing. But what is based on the deal is it's 0.669 of Dominion shares on the day of closing. It's not SCANA stock anymore, it's 0.669. To tell you how some of the market reactions in this deal, on the day that it was announced, the exchange would have been 55.30. Okay? Based on Friday, it would have been $44.50. Okay? $44.50. And yet, the reason for that is because the market has reacted to all these things. All right? And it's kind of back to, if I could expand your point just a little bit. We talked about this a lot. And as you get to know Dominion, we're very transparent. We come right at things. our earnings call was Friday, and one of the analysts came along and said, are you going to offer more for SCANA to finish the deal? And our chairman, one-word answer, no. Okay? People want transparency. That's one of the things we've heard from the legislators loud and clear. They think that has been lost from this discussion. How much more transparent can we be? We said this from day one, and I have been in almost every one of these meetings. People have said, well, you're saying it's a take it or leave it deal. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is every financial deal has parameters. We put it on the table right at the beginning. Now, if SCANA wants to contribute more to get the deal done, that's up to SCANA, their board of directors, etc. Dominion is not going to put more money on the table. But if you do the rate right now, SCANA stock is probably in the $36, $37 range. So it is not the premium that a lot of people talk about out there. If I could just answer one other thing about that. We continue to hear from legislators that says, why are you giving SCANA any premium to the shareholders? Why don't you give them less premium and more to the customers? People forget, because it's a stock-for-stock transfer, that doesn't generate cash, okay? It doesn't generate more cash for the customer piece of that, just because of the exchange rate. Yes, sir?
I'm both a SCE&G customer and a Santee Cooper customer. What would the impact be to Santee Cooper customers, if any, in your opinion?
So the question came out about Santee Cooper. And I know the legislature is deciding, governor has talked about wanting to sell Santee Cooper. Dominion has no opinion about that, okay? We looked at Santee Cooper last year at their request, governor's request, legislative leader's request, and to be candid with you, we couldn't make the numbers work, okay? That Santee Cooper has about $8.3 billion of debt right now, of which about half of that is what happened at Jenkinsville. And the interesting thing at Jenkinsville, when Santee Cooper invested their $4.2 billion, anybody want to guess how much equity they put into that? Zero. They debt financed every bit of it. So we basically told the governor and others and said, look, if that's what you want to do, we of course have no issue with it. Dominion took a step back from that one, said, you know what, somebody else will have to be interested in that because Dominion cannot get there. But as part of our SCANA deal, sir, to specifically answer your question, it would not affect positively or negatively Santee Cooper customers at that point. Yes, sir, I saw you back here.
Yeah, is there a competing bid out there at all? Somebody competing with you guys? I know you said if somebody brings more money, fine, but what's going on there?
Yep, so just repeat your question so everybody can hear. Is there another offer coming or anything else that we're aware of for SCANA? Is that your question?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of, but a lot of people are surprised to find out that if another company would want to make an acquisition offer for SCANA, they can do it today. They could have done it 2 months ago, and they could do it next week. You know what? There is nothing that foregoes another company for making another offer for SCANA. Now, do I think that's possible? I have no idea. But I candidly have my doubts, considering people continue to talk about this. This has been such a big issue out there that we're 8 or 9 months into this. And I don't want to give everybody thinking that somebody else is going to come through the door. Because candidly, sir, I have my doubts. One more?
Fine.
Oh.
So what is the future of the 2 reactors that are partially built? Is there planning on finishing them? I know it's going to cost money just to mothball them and stop it. It's expensive no matter what. What's the future of that?
So the question is, what's going to happen to units 2 and 3 in Jenkinsville, and will they ever be finished? Okay. SCANA/Dominion will never have an ownership if those units are ever finished. We can't. The reason for that is SCANA is pursuing this, and we agree with this. They're pursuing a federal tax write-off that basically says we don't think the units would ever be finished, and that is more advantageous to the customers than write-off, or than salvage value. Okay? And to do that, and you get that ruling from the IRS, by the way. All right? And so that write-off is more important to you as the customer than the salvage value. Santee Cooper doesn't have that issue. Santee Cooper is a quasi-governmental entity and doesn't have those tax liabilities. So if they would want to finish that at some point, they could, okay? Now, the only way that Dominion/SCANA could be involved is we could have an offtake agreement from them. We could buy power from there, but we could never have an ownership right in that because that eliminates that write-off that is so important to you as a customer. Okay?
Dan, we appreciate you being with us today. Can you stick around for a few minutes afterwards? All right. And Stephen, who next week?
Next week our speaker is United States Senator Lindsey Graham.
All right, Lindsey Graham next week. Folks, see a lot of folks here, and we'll go ahead and end with song.